Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. My name is Tilly and I'm a strength and conditioning coach with my bachelor's and my master's in exercise and sports science. I actually just got the official sheet for my master's, so I'm like buzzing. If you're new here, make sure you like and subscribe because it'll mean that you get to stay up to date with some really cool sports science discussions, and we talk a little bit about the research behind all of them. I am absolutely sure you don't want to miss out on that stuff, so get subscribing. Today we're going to be talking about something that I know all of you know about, but a lot of you probably don't do it. We are going to be talking about warm-ups. Now, I am 100% guilty of not wanting to do a warm-up in the past. I've skipped them a lot, mostly just because I'm lazy. There's not really another excuse for it, but I promise that warming up is an absolute necessity, and it can be the thing that helps take your workout to the next level. So we're going to start off today's video by talking about all of the amazing and almost endless benefits of warm-ups, and then I'm going to tell you about how to make a warm-up best suited to you. So when we warm up, we're getting our body and our mind ready to perform. So we see an increase in psychological preparedness. We get an increased blood flow to the active muscles. This then means that we get increased oxygen delivery to the muscles that we need for the workout. We get lowered viscous resistance in our muscles and our joints. This just means that things move more smoothly and all of that creaking and cracking in our bones lessens. We see improvements in muscular strength and power in the workout compared to people who do not warm up. And we see improvements in the rate of force development, so the explosive power that we have. We also see improvements in reaction time, so we're quicker to make decisions. And we see faster muscle contractions and relaxations in both agonist and antagonistic muscles. We see improvements in movement competency, and that just means that people who warm up usually do better technically with the movements in the session than people who didn't warm up. And finally, something that you guys might have been expecting me to say is that warm-ups reduce the risk of injury. Unfortunately, the actual influence of a warm-up on injury prevention is a little bit unclear, but based on all of the things that I just mentioned, it stands to reason that doing a warm-up probably could help you prevent an injury. Some research that I've seen before has suggested that an increased muscle temperature means that we have an increased resistance to muscle tear. So I suppose if you wanted to, you could argue that warm-ups are helpful against preventing injuries. However, we cannot say for absolutely sure that that is the reason why we wouldn't get injured. Personally think it's a pretty sound strategy if reducing injuries is your goal though. Now let's talk about how we actually make a warm-up. There's an amazing paper that I've linked below and I think you should all read it. It's by Ian Jeffries. It completely outlines the framework that we can all use when we're structuring a warm-up. Jeffries outlines a more modern protocol called the RAMP protocol. So let's go through what each of these letters mean. RAMP stands for raise, activate, mobilize, and potentiate. So let's start with the raise phase. And let me tell you, it brings me such great joy that that rhymes. Raise is all about elevating your heart rate, your breathing rate, and your body temperature. It's all about increasing your blood flow and your joint fluid viscosity. Pretty stereotypically, when I think of the raise phase, I'm thinking of a slow jog or some sort of aerobic movement that can help just slowly build up our body temperature. And if that's something you want to do in this phase, that is definitely okay. Jeffries makes the point, however, that we should probably be aiming to kind of replicate more sport-specific movements or things that'll help us long-term. So this might be a good time to do sprint mechanics like an A march or something like that, just so that we can really make the most of the time that we have in the gym or on the field. The next two letters of the acronym stand for activate and mobilize. There are two main goals for this phase: activating key muscle groups and mobilizing specific joints and ranges of motions that we're going to need in the session. The activation could include things like banded exercise or prehab movements, exercises that are designed to target key movement patterns. So when you think of the activate phase, I want you to think of things like the overhead squat, a lunge, rotator cuff exercises, a glute bridge, or mini banded routines. By putting these kind of exercises in the warm-up part of the session rather than the actual workout, we save time, and it means that we can focus on the big lifts or the big movements and the big activities that we need. And that way we can get the most out of every gym session or session on the field. Now for the mobilization phase, this is all about targeting specific movements, not necessarily targeting key muscle groups. During this phase, we want to aim to move our muscles and our joints through their full range of motion. This has the effect of increasing our preparation and our preparedness for the session. It also helps activate our muscles and helps us mobilize the specific movements that we will need. Things like dynamic stretching accomplish all of these goals. By using things like dynamic stretching in this phase of the RAMP protocol, it means that we can maintain that elevation in heart rate and our body temperature pressure that we achieved during the raise phase. This is because we're still moving our body a good amount, quite frequently and sometimes rapidly, and we're not letting it cool back down. But at the same time, we're also working on stability, our flexibility, and our motor control. Using dynamic stretches can also be really time efficient. This is because we can move more than one muscle and more than one joint in a single exercise. Dynamic stretches can also be a really great way to help bring variety into our warm-up routines. And that added variability can help contribute to our training gains. Now, the final phase of the warm-up that we need to talk about is the potentiation phase. Remember, the P stands for potentiate. The most common aim of this phase is to increase the intensity of our warm-up so much so that we are absolutely ready to perform at a maximal level during our session. This is the phase where we see an actual shift towards the movements that we're going to be completing in session. If you're a team sports athlete outside of the gym, this is where you'd be moving to more sport-specific activities of increasing intensity. And by including those higher intensity activities that are specific to what we're about to actually do, we can help facilitate our performance in the gym session or on the field. If we were doing a sprint workout, then the potentiate phase of the ramp protocol might include some things like sprint drills, acceleration mechanics. In a resistance training session, it might look like doing a power clean or some squat jumps before you go into that full clean or before you go into that back squat. In this phase, you really want to provide a progression towards the intensity and the movements that you are actually doing in the session. I don't really think Jeffries specifically mentions this in his article, but during this phase, I think that you could include your warm-up sets towards the actual lift that you're about to do. So if I was doing a hip thrust, my potentiate phase might look like a few sets before my first actual working set of the hip thrust. Say my working set was at 100 kilos, my potentiate phase might be a few reps at 50, then 70, then 80 kilos. By building up to my working weight, I can make sure that I am truly prepared for the session. And that brings us to the end of the ramp protocol: the raise, activate, mobilize, and potentiate. All of the exercises that you've seen floating through the video today are things that I frequently do in my warm-up sessions. And this way I can approach every session with the right attitude, and hopefully it'll help facilitate my best performance possible. I hope seeing some of these exercises has also given you an idea of something that you might like to implement. If you build off a lot of those examples, then you could have a warm-up ready to go. I've got them written down just here in case you wanted to copy that, or you can build off it and make some of your own. You can also tailor some elements to fit the kind of movements that you're going to be doing in your session. Just one final part that I want to remind you guys of is that your warm-up has to change alongside your training program. It is not enough to always do the same warm-up because your body will adapt to it. You need to have progression in there, so you need to make things harder and you need to make it fit with your current work level and current fitness capacity. So please don't be afraid to try new things, but do make sure you're writing it down so that you're aware of how you can actually progress it, make it harder, and make it better suited to your current ability. And I hope this gives you an overall framework and it helps you feel a little bit more prepared, like you know what you're doing when you go into that session. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe. I would love to see some support. If you made it this far, thank you guys for watching. I hope you have a great week ahead, and I will catch you next time. Bye.